good morning. It's Sunday morning, Sunday the 1st of September. So we could say it is the start of the autumn area now. We are going into autumn. Well, it's not a bad morning. A few clouds around, but it's nice and bright, not too cold, fresh. Anyway, I've just, as you can see probably from the traffic behind me, I'm just at the hospital. Anyway, just following on from the podcast and the very short video I sent out yesterday on the political scenario, and to answer some of the questions, one particular shout out to somebody who's on one of my subscribers who sent me a few questions regarding Brexit and the question, where is Boris leading us? So I'm not going to mention names unless they request I ask for names, because I don't want to just broadcast everyone's name out on the internet unless they ask me to. So if he asks me to, then I will, obviously. But in answer to the question, well, Boris is leading us on a new path out of the European Union, so we can form new trading alliances with the rest of the world. But he also wants to get on with domestic policy in the UK and getting our domestic issues back on track: education, healthcare, and crime and things like this, which I wouldn't say they've deteriorated rapidly. I think that's over dramatized, but I think there has been a lack of attention due to all the focus that's been going on Brexit for the last few years. I think it's only right that we get into the focus of getting our domestic issues sorted out. Obviously, the Brexit no deal or deal, whatever the case may be, is going to get us into a situation where we can start negotiating our trading relationships with countries outside the EU, as well as set out new trade arrangements within the EU. Because obviously, if we don't have a deal at all when we leave the EU, we're going to have to set up new trading relationships again. And there's lots of good trading relations to be worked on in the EU. Apart from Germany and France, which are the obvious ones, countries like Poland, which is thriving in many parts of its economy. Other areas need assistance, but there's areas which is thriving. And Poland, has been a leader in terms of GDP performance for years. And I always take Poland on a similarity to ourselves in the UK. Okay, yes, they entered the EU much later than we did, but they did it on a very similar scale as well. They didn't take the euro, for example. They've kept the zloty. So, but just I see lots of good manufacturing in Poland, which I think there's links and there's good opportunity to position ourselves with trade relations with that. Sorry, I hope that sun's not too bright. Sorry. So I think it's this exciting time. So the leading process that Boris has taken up in leading us into this new environment, this new world of trade. I don't see anything sinister in the Boris government whatsoever. I think it's had to be quite assertive in its approach this last few months, but I think what Boris is going to be looking for relatively quickly, okay, although he hasn't said it, is an election. He's going to be looking for an election to get his own mandate to go forward very, very soon in the next few months. Now, Whether he'll get forced into that sooner, I don't know. But I don't think it's off the table for him at all. I think he is already thinking about that election for his mandate really now. I mean, that's why he's suspended Parliament, so he can put his agenda on the table. You've got to remember, British political proposition, you've got to close a Parliament and open a new Parliament to change, in many respects, the agenda set out by the Prime Minister. And he's still working on Theresa May's agenda in many respects. So it is important that he has his own Parliament with the Queen's speech, and it is well overdue. This has been one of the longest parliamentary sessions we've had in terms of its time frame, nearly 2 years. So all this sinister discussion going on by the Corbyns and confused Conservatives, in my opinion, and people who are generally now who've been going out into the streets over the weekend and having these demonstrations. I don't really think they understand any of that. They can't do. I mean, they're talking about democracy is not working because he's suspending Parliament for a period of time, a short period of time. No, he's not. He's a Democrat. Let's be realistic. Some people are calling him a tin pot dictator. I've never heard anything so. I've been in countries where there have been tin pot dictators, and I can tell you now, it's nothing like that whatsoever. What surprises me is that I'll keep on saying this: the balance of broadcasting and media cover it's just not objective. It's not giving a true reflection of what society is all about. It's very much leaning towards the Leave campaign, because I it's all based on the fact that the BBC, leaders in the BBC, and a large proportion of the media, and a large proportion of the MPs sitting in Parliament were more on the Remain side and not on the side of the general public. And I think that's where the problem has been. They have never accepted the fact that we're leaving the European Union with or without a deal. And that's what it's really been about. It's not been about anything else. And when they talk about democracy, the thinking is now, well, when we voted in 2016, we didn't know what we were voting for. Well, I think the Leavers did know what they were voting for. Perhaps that's the situation. The Leavers did know what they were voting for. I think the Remainers just didn't expect the Leavers to win. And on the basis of that, they want to have another referendum, and I think that would be damaging for our society. And I think if you think there's quite a few thousand Remainers who are demonstrating this whole thing with Boris Johnson at the moment. If for some reason this process was overturned by, I don't know how it can be overturned now, but if it was, I think that would there would be more than just simple demonstrating in the streets. In my opinion, I think there would be a revolution, quite honestly, because I don't think, these people are relatively quiet at the moment with regards to taking the process forward. They're making their arguments more quietly, so it's not getting the headlines, as I say, because the media are covering it. But if they were to suddenly have the situation overturned or delayed further, I think there would be it'd be catastrophic. And I think that's the whole point. Boris Johnson understands that. He understands the fact what the general feeling on the ground is. What what we're getting in the press and what we're getting in the media and what overseas countries are getting about the UK is that we are predominantly, our people on the ground don't want to leave the European Union. That's not true at all. It isn't true at all. It's just being perceived that way because of the leaning of our media, and because we've had so many MPs in Parliament influencing certain aspects. I think it's, you know. So anyway, that's where we are with our political situation. It's Sunday today, as I said, Sunday the 1st of September. I think from tomorrow and next week there's going to be some very interesting scenarios happening in Parliament and in the courts. Energy is being applied to try and stop Boris Johnson from driving the EU to the end on this, and it's going to be a very, very interesting few days over the next few days. I can't say to you categorically we are going to leave. I think we will leave as it happens, but if I was to, to say 100%, I would say no. I can't put 100% on it because I just don't know what tricks there are being played with people in Parliament. I think the one thing I am assured with is the government, the cabinet that Boris Johnson has put around him are all very much singing on the same hymn sheet. They are going to work down the same path, and that's quite honestly what you want as a country. You want your government to be united. What's got to happen is, obviously, the whole country has got to be united in a situation like this. So that's where the task becomes more challenging. He's got to get to grips with the country and unite it as well. And he can only really do that once we're out. He can't do it before. Because, he's got to get through the process, and there's going to be some issues, obviously, to get to that stage. But I'm saying give him a chance. Give him a chance, he'll do the job.